Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. This time, The Hunted. Yeah, it's like us. Are we the hunter or the hunted or both? The Hunted. Speaking of The Hunted, hunt us down on Facebook. Yeah, we got a page. It's All Been Checked Before there. Go there. Tell us what you think about what we're doing. We can take it. Maybe it'll be positive. Maybe it'll be negative. Tell us special episodes. We're in the middle of a season right now, but maybe you got something, maybe you want us to do the Lindsay Lohan Freaky Friday. Yeah, Facebook, It's All Been Checked Before. You can find us there. It's a little trickier, but we're The Hunted, and this is The Hunted on It's All Been Checked Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Checked Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And Keith.
Jimmy-Jerome. This week we are talking The Hunted. First impressions.
It was okay. I don't want to say aggressively okay. It was one of those episodes where right off the bat, not only, we've talked about these these hand-tipping titles, The Hunted, but pretty much within the first 5 minutes, it was, we know kind of what the game is or what it's going to be about. And then it's just a matter of figuring out, and somebody even says, he's very mysterious or something like that. It's just figured out, okay, what's mysterious about him, and then resolving that. I thought it was very, not quite ripped from the headlines, but it was very of its time. I think there's a more interesting episode in there, and I'll get into that later when I get into my alternative episode. But it was okay.
It had a lot of the stuff that I think that I liked. I put that it was a mix of action and philosophy. Mm. They had the urgent chase moments and fights, and also a lot of downtime in it to talk through the moral quandaries. And I also thought it was interesting. I'm looking ahead a bit, but I think this pair of episodes we watched were amazingly coincidental to being on Veterans Day, which is when we're recording, because they're both really
Veterans
relevant.
Day was forever ago, or forever in the future. But we're recording this one and the next one on Veterans Day, yes.
I will say, I will agree with you, Keith. I thought some of the action sequences were actually good in this episode. I'm getting ahead of myself. Sorry, I'll give you a shot here, Jimmy. But I thought that some of the fight scenes went on a little long, which is okay with me, because I think lots of times fight scenes are punch, 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 done. And
they're unrealistically easy. Usually.
Yeah, and this definitely served the episode and what it was about. And I thought they were actually more interesting, and it got more crew members involved, and we actually got to see security be security and not just get knocked out and be completely in it. Now, they weren't completely efficient, but they weren't completely, there's a good reason why they weren't efficient.
No red shirts died in the making of this episode.
That is correct.
Honestly, I thought the episode was fine. It felt like an original series episode in a bad way. It had a simplistic moral message that they hit you over the head on. And it had a light mystery that was really easy to figure out. And it had, it's not bad. It just felt like it used a formula that the original series used a bunch and did not distinguish itself as a memorable episode to me.
I can kind of see what you mean about the predictable formula, because already it's like, okay, we've got an escaped convict or someone fleeing from a government for some reason, and it's probably going to turn out to be some sympathetic reason eventually that the crew shouldn't overreact, that kind of thing. But
I mean, it was nice the fugitive was played by Harrison Ford. I liked that part.
What?
I'm kidding. Obviously. No, Roga Dinar was the fugitive, played by Jeff McCarthy, best known for RoboCop 2, Cliffhanger.
He's the one who was the voice of Michigan J. Frog.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool.
I think that was him.
He did. He's got that credited twice in 1997
for the WB. He was the
yes.
Oh, right. Like Animaniacs and so forth. I was trying to think if that was.
He did have one episode of Animaniacs in 1996 as Michigan J. Frog.
I mean, it was.
Sometimes these animated shows aren't completely filled out on IMDb, so maybe he played it more than that. But
yeah, I mean, it was the Dancing Frog, but not the same version of the classic Dancing Frog. It's just brought up again for the purpose of the newer WB series.
And I thought he was okay. I thought the script burdened him and the rest of the episode with the same thing, which was, instead of just cutting to the chase and here's who I am and here's what I'm about and here's the deal, I think they thought that the reveal was going to be more interesting than it was, and it wasn't. And just to cut into the real world, the meta real world, whatever, when I read full-length scripts for theater, lots of times I feel like writers, they hold back thinking, oh, everyone's going to talk around this mystery. And then you get to page 81 and you're like, big deal. Or yeah, I knew that was coming. And it's like, if you spend that long building up to it, it better be amazing. And I think the payoff is decent in this episode. I think it's okay. It's not amazing. Yeah. And so I think it would have been better served if Troy comes to see him and he's like, yeah, here's the deal, man. You're a beta Z, and you should probably know, but here's the deal. I mean, you could say he sought his defense mechanisms up involuntarily, but still, I think it's a much more interesting episode if he's like, here's the deal, here's who I am. But instead of, because I feel like there's a lot of talking around things, and I think we could have got to more action. And I'm not Mr. Let's blow things up and stuff, but I think we could have had a lot more better action, whether they could afford it or not. Because at the end, the action scene at the end is not great. It's just a bunch of guys standing around with guns. But,
No, I think you're totally right. We had this B plot that was positioned as an A plot, where this world wants to be part of the Federation. They've just recovered from a war, and I guess it's related to the A plot, but it felt very much like this was going to be about that, about the world wanting to join the Federation, which I was curious because I want to know more about that process. And sadly, we didn't get a lot about the process, but I guess most people don't care about that.
Yeah.
We did get, playing the leader of the Ingosians, James Cromwell, who I got very excited because he will, I mean, everybody knows him from Babe, of course, and other things, but he will play Zephram Cochrane in the Next Generation movie, Star Trek First Contact.
Yeah.
Huh. So this was before he blew up, James Cromwell. He was second in the guest starring credits behind the main guy, which I found surprising.
I remembered you mentioned he was in this, and then when I watched, and then of course he appears right away, and then when in those opening credits, I'm like, oh, he's not even first. This is way back. This is before he was James Cromwell, but
right before he did Babe or The Green Mile or LA Confidential or anything.
That mustache was amazing, and I felt like, did he have a little bit of like an Eastern European accent, kind of?
I don't know,
creeping in there. And maybe I was just hearing it.
He will also guest star on an episode of Deep Space Nine as yet another character. And then he makes an appearance in Star Trek Enterprise as the same Zephram Cochrane. So we'll see him again. Of course, this was Zephram Cochrane before he got trapped on the planet with Keith's girlfriend, the Cloud Woman. Right. But we'll get to that later.
And I know there's a movie where he plays, for laughs, he plays somebody with like a German accent and that mustache. But I can't place it. I haven't found it yet. But anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Does have a ton of credits before this, so he was a working actor. He just wasn't big. Yeah. They immediately introduced this impressive pilot, no life signs, and I guess that's the mystery. Okay, that's interesting. But I found it more interesting immediately after, where Data tells O'Brien where to find him and beam him aboard. And then O'Brien holds him in stasis in the transporter beam and disables his weapon. I figured you guys would be excited about that, to talk about transporter technology.
Yeah, that definitely hit me like, wait a minute.
I was a little distracted during that moment, and I'm piecing it together based on what you were saying. I caught the tail end of that.
I thought that part of the mystery was okay. That part I was intrigued by, and to your point, Jimmy, like, okay, we're cat and mouse. It was going to be a cat and mouse thing. Now you got me interested. Data's matching him. What are his other moves? That part was at least interesting to me.
It sounds like what kind of got you guys off of the whole thing was really the slow down, talk it through part of. I think the conversational aspect of what they were doing didn't seem to live up to what the setup was. Perhaps.
I'm not sure. I just kind of felt it was the overall way it was put together. Like I want to say it feels less than the sum of its parts when you add it up.
Yes. Yeah. And like I said, I feel like
that's a good way of putting it.
I feel like they talked around what was going on rather than,
and then when they did talk about it, it was so like bad dialogue.
Yeah.
Just not what I wanted. This episode was written. So while we're talking about bad dialogue, let's call it out. I feel it was written by Robin Bernheim, best known for being a writer on Remington Steele and a producer on Quantum Leap. So she was also a producer, or I don't know, was also a producer on Voyager. So Robin, clearly Star Trek liked her and they kept him or her. Like I said, I didn't look up gender here, but kept this person around, so they must have liked their work. Robin wrote 3 episodes of Voyager, and this is the only episode of The Next Gen that Robin wrote. So maybe Robin did better with Voyager. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I mean,
also wrote for Tech War. So, you Shatner fans out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we got past a lot of this stuff sequentially, I guess, that I liked about what was going on going into it. So that first bit when they were trying to figure out how to zero in on him, I really liked. I mean, I liked them getting to the technology of how they were trying to track him, the whole asteroid bit. Although they relied on that sort of nose to nose aspect of getting around the meteor, and they could have just like gone upward or something, something rather than having to go peeking around. Like what? No, I like to see more things like that. You got to see other people in charge. Data in the command chair and delegating on the bridge. I really liked that bit of it. Something about the way that they were tracking him, Danar, and having to chase him down. All that, it almost felt like they were introducing a new character that they're going to add to the crew. Like they're going to offer him a job or something afterward. Like,
so Wesley's going to the academy. You want to be our pilot?
Something like that, or we could use a man like you.
That was actually their intention for season 4 was to bring him back to replace Wesley, but they never did.
Are you serious?
No.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not serious.
I wasn't buying that one.
You sounded so sincere.
Full Steven for a second. I mean, speaking of characters getting to do more stuff, because you were right, I did enjoy Data's a little bit there, but O'Brien, not only did he get to do the cool transporter disabling and stuff, but he actually got in the fist fight. He got stunned by a phaser. Like O'Brien was mixing it up.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that. And then Riker and Worf get down with their corridor wrestling, which was pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I like I said, that was one of those sequences that went on longer than I thought it was, and I was completely okay with it. That was one of the better sequences in the episode. Speaking of something else, you were talking about them trying to disarm him in stasis. The other thing I liked was when I think Picard, I'm sure I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, beam up anything long enough to be someone, which I thought was like, okay, that's an interesting strategy. Because what I wanted to see was everything from the inside of that ship.
Well, it was just escape pod. It was pretty small.
Oh, that's right. It was 7 meters. That's right.
Yeah. It reminded me of Kalar's little vessel where they shot her across.
I wish I wish there'd been something else in there though that had shown up. Whether it was
that would have been fun.
Yeah.
Or he had some type of like scary suit where you thought it was some weird alien, and then he takes it off and it's just him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're watching this on YouTube, on Patreon, you're getting all kinds of visual from me tonight.
We got a lot of guest stars tonight.
Apparently. Callie, Zoe. Hi, Zoe. So I'm looking at my notes, and my next note, and this is where I think I started to get bored, was when he gives his story and they're questioning him like if he's a criminal or whatever. It felt that was where I wrote, this dialogue is just so cheesy. I'm so checked out of it. I feel like I was with the episode up until he started talking.
Yeah, and I think and I'll get into my thesis about what the episode should have been and what it kind of is a little bit more here soon, because I didn't take a ton of notes on this episode. But they get into essentially it's a PTSD vets coming home episode. Whether you want to call it a Vietnam episode or whatever you want to call it, it's one of those it's First Blood Next Generation or Rambo Next Generation. No, I'll say First Blood because Rambo is a completely different thing altogether. I actually like First Blood, the movie. And it's very much that. It's like you guys made these guys into these killers. They went and did the job for you. And now they come back and they don't have a function. And they're still in that world. And, that's obviously we're still experiencing that now in the ongoing never ending war we're in right now. But obviously Vietnam was the thing, and still in 80, whatever, 90, Vietnam was still, it wasn't that much in the rear view mirror. So it's very much about that. And there's some other lines, but yeah, to your point, Jimmy, there are more interesting and better ways to say it. It was very much like, I am reading to you, like, and to that point, First Blood is the book, which I haven't read, but I've read excerpts, and the movie whatever you want to say about Sylvester Stallone in that movie or whatever, I like the movie and I like his performance. Even whether you can't understand a word he says in his final couple monologues, it's more heartfelt and draws you in more than what was going on here. This just felt more, not homogenized, not the right word. It just wasn't interesting. It just didn't grab you. I wanted to feel for this guy, but I didn't. I mean, I was rooting for him, and I get it, but yeah.
Well, I had a couple things to say about that. The first part of it reminded me when he described his role or how he felt about the society that he was protecting. It reminded me of the movie Serenity, the Firefly movie.
I love that movie.
The agent tracking them down. The way that he was speaking was from the effect. The character saw himself as being a monster, but for a purpose he believed in. He said, "I don't belong in that society. I'm here to protect it. I accept that. I'm outside of it now." And the trouble with that type of character is you really have to. I mean, it takes a certain kind of mindset that wasn't being presented as interestingly, as Stephen was saying, for lack of a better word. But I like the idea of someone who isn't necessarily broken in the way that we're used to seeing them. That kind of subvocal or they're breaking down crying or they seem crazy or whatever. It's a much more clinical kind of separation. Someone who is sort of robotically monstrous or someone who seems inhuman. And I think that they were kind of trying to bring that across from him not even showing up on censors as being human, and that like they completely took that aspect from him. That's going to lead to a different comment.
Keith, you're making this episode sound way more interesting than I thought it was.
I wish that's the episode I had seen in my mind.
And jumping ahead a bit too, it seemed like they were too briefly touching on the part of this that has to do with Veterans Day, and even the mindset that persists now is they were confronting James Cromwell, I guess, the leader of whoever. Why is this happening? Why did you do this? And the will of the people, he said. Essentially, people didn't want to pay higher taxes, so they just said, "Screw them."
Yeah.
We could have better vet hospitals, we could have better treatment, but when it comes down to it, the people are going to give lip service. But if you ask them to pay more money to do something, they're like, no.
And we're in that same world now, which is of course depressing. But the other part, I can't remember if it's that part or early on, they ask him about something. He's like, well, that's a matter of internal security. And I can't remember if it's Picard I think it's Picard who's talking. He's like, internal security, always and I just wrote down whether it's national defense or national security. I like that. I actually like that pointed, not so pointed allusion. I actually like that one. The liberal part of me loves where this episode's coming from, and I like the message. I just wanted a better package.
If only they'd had somebody say to James Cromwell, "You have plenty of money to give the rich people the tax cuts. Why can't we find the money to treat them?"
That's right.
Right?
Oh man.
That would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess our first clue on that he wasn't the bad guy he was introduced as was Troy didn't believe he was violent, which feels weird because he was violent. Yeah. But I guess maybe she just realized he didn't have hostility towards them, which would make more sense than just saying he's not violent.
Well, it's more about what she concluded eventually, which was he could kind of turn it on and off like a switch, or rather it was something that sort of operated like a switch that would only activate when needed. Well,
no, I think he still had it in him and on him and made him a little more argumentative and than he would have been abrasive. But it was very much like a soldier dealing with PTSD, where you haven't left it all behind, but they're trying to integrate back into society. I mean, that's what I got out of it anyway. I mean, you made this soldier, but you can't be undone. That's like PTSD. You can treat it, but there's always going to be part of it there. And that's kind of what I thought they were saying about him.
Well, yeah, but I mean, functionally, the reason why she said that he wasn't hostile at the moment was because he wasn't being threatened. It was sort of like as you
if
said,
you're not attacking him, it's not.
Yes, something left over in him, literally, that he couldn't necessarily control, but wouldn't have a reason to activate. So the other thing that I said I was going to come back to, I felt like I might have been distracted. Did they explain exactly how he was outside of their sensors, or the sensors weren't detecting them, how he was able to fight the transporter beam. What was going on there?
So the transporter beam, that's a whole separate thing I got notes on that we'll talk about. But as far as not coming with the sensors not finding him, I assume that was part of the enhancement they gave him to make him a superior fighter. I don't think it was said explicitly. I was just making that assumption.
Yeah, they said cloaking device, and they didn't say it was, but it was kind of hinted that he had something that, served the same purpose for him individually. Yeah,
that would make sense for a soldier. You wouldn't want them to be able to be scanned or seen coming at the enemy. Yeah, the whole thing about the planet not wanting the Enterprise help fixing their mistake and being independent, I guess we get that. We've certainly seen people with that attitude.
Sure.
It was counterproductive in this instance.
Right.
You'd think we got a problem. These people are offering help with the problem. Take the help. But I don't know. It was that. I feel like it's that Republican streak of being so stubborn to spite their own face, the selfishness. And
well, see, I think it's even better than that in the sense that it was more of a double standard for the help. They were all too willing to say, come in and fight for us and do these things and take care of the violent stuff. They just didn't want to concede to the other social aspects of what was happening, or the things they're saying. Yeah, okay, well, we'll help you help them. No, let's just fight them for us, kill them, or
It's easier to pay somebody to do our dirty work than for us to actually do the other work to avoid the dirty work. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And so my last note there was Picard essentially prime directives his ass at the end. The whole it's like, okay, you can't have it both ways. We're out of here.
Right. Yeah, I did actually like that.
I liked the end too. I think that was Picard just leaving was such a good way to handle it and unexpected. Our heroes didn't solve the problem. They just said, okay, you guys figure it out yourselves.
If earlier in the episode things have been that to the point and kind of snippy and sharp, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
Yeah. So backing up a bit, when he escaped the transporter beam, at first I thought he had blown up and died in the transporter beam. So I rewound and watched it again, but I don't understand how he was able to get out of the stream. I just don't get it. The transporter doesn't take that long. And when it catches you not just because you're standing in a column. You you can be in different positions and stretched out and still get beamed. So how do you get a hand out of the beam? I did not understand that at all.
Yeah, they were so vague about how he was augmented that it's like, we can explain everything away by, we gave him these superpowers. It's like,
I thought that was a real weakness in the episode, the transporter escape.
It feels like some one of those holes that comes up. I think I've said this before. Something about the way that is visually executed that might not necessarily gel with what the writer intended.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
So you're saying this isn't Robin Bernheim's fault?
I'm not. I'm saying it's unclear what they might have intended versus how it was actually executed.
No, I think you said it's not Robin's fault. I'm just going to twist your words, Keith. Let it happen.
But more specifically, the thing about the hand out of the beam. Yeah, I mean, that seems to be how you would translate how those transporter pads would work. But
in my mind, as soon as that arm's out of there, we're talking like the motion picture kind of terrible.
Yes.
Carnage.
Yes.
As opposed to, nope, I'm just busting out of here. I don't want to transport.
That begs the question of how those how the pads work too. I mean, the circular setup they have for those columns, it implies you have to be exactly smaller than that size to be transported. And in it, sometimes they have cargo in the center column that's because it's larger or something.
But we've seen again and again that that's not true.
Yeah, I don't know.
They're more like almost like, here's your mark, stand on it.
Yeah.
For maximum transporter efficiency.
Yeah, I think the technology in this episode was all over the place.
Yes,
I really did not appreciate that. Yeah. So they have the guy cornered in the cargo bay, and they decide to gas him. And Riker does not look happy about gassing him. And I'm just like, why? I mean, you've already got a wrestling match with this guy. You know he's dangerous. What's your problem with gassing him?
He wanted to fight him again.
It's a matter of honor. Or is this Code of Honor? What was the name of the episode? One of those things. Yeah,
I do want to know why Worf only took a team of 3 into that cargo bay instead of 25.
Right.
At this point, it should have been like every security officer on the vessel, right?
Right.
I was under the impression it was part of the ruse. They wanted him to think that they were still behind him, which they ended up being anyway. But I mean, like one step behind what he was doing.
I mean, I liked that ruse. I liked the trick of Worf saying, "Oh, we're going to look elsewhere." Then he comes out, Worf's there. That was good. Although I don't completely think it gels with this enhanced person who can hear what's going on and everything, that he didn't like listen for Worf to leave and track it that way.
Do they say he had like Wolverine powers or something? Or I don't
Not
know.
necessarily, but I'm just assuming you're a super soldier. You can pay attention and hear if somebody's actually left or not. I mean, we didn't get the big scene of Worf walking in place very loudly to make it sound like it was and then slowly getting his steps quieter. I'm glad we didn't have that scene. That would have been ridiculous, but you know what I mean.
That does kind of dovetail into one of my few other notes, but this is another one of my First Blood notes, which is there's that point where I think it's Geordi says it. He's like, "You want my advice? How many men you should have at every point? You want my advice? Double it." I think it's Geordi that says that. And it reminded me of one of my favorite lines from First Blood. So Brian Dennehy's the terrible sheriff who's trying to catch Sylvester Stallone, John Rambo, and Richard Crenna in a great scenery chewing role comes in and as his old commander. And he's like, speaking of what you guys saying, take 25 guys in there. So Dennehy's like, "Well, I'm going up there with 100 marshals or whatever, 100 men or whatever." And Richard Crenna says, "You go up there with that many men, you better remember one thing." "What's that?" "A good supply of body bags." It's one of my favorite lines of all time. He delivers it. It's cheesy as hell. It's great. It's perfect. And that's all I could think of when he said, when Geordi said that. I was like, good supply of body bags. Because, like I said, at some point I was just like, this is First Blood. Even when our guy, Roga Dinar or whatever, when he's going through the ship trying to do his thing, I'm like, who am I rooting for here? I mean, I don't want Enterprise people to get hurt or die. But I was like rooting for him, like, I was like, this is First Blood. He's in unfamiliar territory. He's never been on a starship, as far as we know, probably not. And he's like, nope, I can handle any terrain, which is exactly what First Blood is about. I really enjoyed that line, just what it echoed. And this is around that time too. Somebody's like, well, his true destination remains a mystery. And I was like, yeah, we know. You guys aren't telling us what's going on. We know it's a mystery. We know it's not a good one, but we know you're not telling us yet. We know.
It was directed by Cliff Bowl, who the name should sound familiar because this is the 7th episode he's directed. He'll be our regular director through Next Gen, DS9, and Voyager. And then the last guest star I wanted to mention was James Cromwell's aide. His name was Zaynar, and he was played by J. Michael Flynn. That of in itself isn't all that notable, but J. Michael Flynn played a reoccurring character on Star Trek Enterprise for several episodes. So I guess we'll get to know him a little more then. He doesn't have a lot of acting credits, a lot of little guest star spots, like an episode of The West Wing, episode of 6 Feet Under. This was his only episode of Next Gen.
Along with what Stephen was saying about kind of rooting for the guy, that's the feeling I got at the beginning of the idea of them wanting to offer him a job eventually. It's that type of setup you usually see when you have two people or two teams who aren't necessarily evil or whatever. It's just you want to see a good scrap without them actually hurting each other.
So I just did a quick Google of Rambo and Next Generation, The Hunted, and Memory Alpha, TVAVclub.com, and Tor.com all reference Rambo in their review of this episode. So it wasn't just me. Fashion. I thought everyone's shirts were like a size too big. Like somehow their regular shirts got sent to the cleaners. They didn't come back in time. I just felt like everyone had a little extra material sticking out in this episode. I don't know why, but except for, of course, Troy. But everybody else, I thought like, that sweater's a little big on you, But maybe not watching for a couple weeks. That's what happens. My other one is I thought Dinar's face tattoo eye makeup was terrible. Whatever. I know that was supposed to be some kind of cyborgy type reference. I think.
Right.
But I just thought it was not good.
I liked the big metal badges that James Cromwell and his people wore. It reminded me, again, of the original series, if they get this on Starbase or other ship, and there's like an alternate badge. I did think the outfits on the planet were boring as anything. And Danar, Ragnar, whatever his name is, his outfit was just dumb. like ripped, stereotypical. I don't know.
Yeah, it wasn't soldier wear, it wasn't prison wear, it wasn't even minimum security wear. So
it just was annoying to me.
Yeah,
He stole it on the way out.
Their clothes were as drab as that final action sequence where the 12 people that live on the planet and the 12 guys from the colony faced off against each other. Like, I know I do this complaint all the time. Although, you know what? I take that back, because early on in the episode, there were a bunch of other people walking around, a bunch of extras. But for that scene, it's like, well, it's the 10 of us against the 10 of them. It's all we got. So I only had one other note, non-fashion note. There's a part where Danar disappears late in the episode, and it just felt like he was like, ta-da, and disappeared, and was like, and then showed up again. It was like, for my next trick.
Yeah.
But and those are all the notes I had. Yeah, I didn't take too many. I just thought once it hit that first blood note for me, I don't know. The episode didn't come more boring. It was just like, that's all I could see were those analogies the rest of the way, for better or worse.
Alternate episode?
This is not going to be surprising, because I've been talking about it for the last 25 minutes, but my alternate episode, whether it's a bottle episode or whatever you want to call it.
It's Rambo 3.
Well, no, mine would be that, yeah, Danar is either, I don't want it to be the Enterprise, but I want him to be in a similar situation where and maybe it's on, what's the name of the planet? Augusta? I don't know why I'm calling it Augusta. That's not right.
Well, the people are the Angosians.
Yeah, so he's in a town in Angosia. This is when he first comes home from whatever war, and he faces those kind of things. Or maybe he's on the Enterprise, but maybe it's a Klingon ship or Ramen ship, and he fights his way through and does all those Rambo First Blood things. So that's my alternate episode, because I was actually into that part of the episode. So.
I'm sorry, I just started thinking, Angosia. That's A as in Angosia.
As in not sorry. Ambrosia.
G as in G. It's great to be back in Angosia. oh my God.
Angosia. Yeah, I like that. Any other notes for anybody?
I'm glad we've now switched the Seinfeld to the Family Guy part of the
Let's get to the rankings then. How annoying was Wesley on a scale of 1 to 10?
I gave him a 1.
1. Yeah.
1's all around. Who was your annoyance?
Cromwell's mustache.
Cromwell's mustache?
Yeah.
I was just going to go Cromwell in general.
Yeah.
I'm going to say the Angosian
not
voters.
James Cromwell's best work. But
I wrote his mustache / accent, which maybe I just imagined his accent.
It did feel like he had a little bit of an accent.
Yeah.
Keith?
I went with the Angosian Republican voters.
Angosia Republicans. Okay. Anybody got a crush?
No. I don't know who I left off with, but I'm sticking with him.
Leah Brahms.
Oh yeah, wow, she's sticking around.
We haven't had anybody for a while.
Yeah.
Keith, you're at Utah. You want to switch to Ragnar?
I mean, Dinar.
Whatever.
I actually considered it. There's something about the character that I liked, but nah.
I'm going to stick with Upstation Brunette. Ranking the episode, I have in all caps here, let Keith rank first.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Because we really need to stop pushing Keith in one way or the other. We need to let him.
I need to know where the... Well, I feel like we're going to end up toward the bottom, maybe, but it just feels like a middle to me. I don't know. What's in the middle right now?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you that we can start in the middle, but I do think it's going to go down. Well, there's an even number of episodes right now until this one, so the bottom middle is the survivors.
God, this is where recency bias really comes into play. I mean, it feels, because of the break, it feels like everything was even longer ago. It feels above to me at the moment.
I would go below.
I understand why. Yeah,
I think it's similar. They're very similar because that whole episode was the same thing. Like, we're going to talk around the problem. We're going to talk around the problem.
Yes. Yes.
I think the payoff's better in that episode than this episode.
That's fair. That is fair.
That's the only reason. That's the main reason I would rank it out.
It's
I just
probably
thought that episode was better put together. I don't feel like I was complaining about the cheesiness and people breaking out transporter beams and stuff.
Yeah, the action's better in this episode, but there just wasn't any in that
That's what I was going to say. That it really comes down to the action.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we're going down, the one below that is the Ensigns of Command. That's where Data had to convince those people to leave, the colonists to leave.
Oh man,
I think that one was better.
this feels like The Neighborhood.
I think we're getting closer, but I think I agree with you, Jimmy.
Below that's the Bonding with Jeremy Astor, the kid.
You know what? I think I like this one better.
Yeah.
I think I do.
I
Let's
don't
go with Bonding. So
I
now
don't think I do, but
I like that one better.
the Vengeance Factor is below the Bonding.
Oh, no, probably not.
I would still go below, personally.
Wow.
I think I'd go above.
Well, you had it above the Bonding as well.
Yeah, I did. You're right.
So I think I'm the outlier here.
And that might totally be recency bias.
I think a lot of it is at this point. I mean, I really don't. When it comes down to it, I see some of the points that there wasn't a lot to this episode, but it felt, I don't know.
I think where we're going to land is above the Bonding between Ensigns of Command, because you both agreed on that spot, and I'd go further lower. Although I think Keith would probably on his own go higher.
Yeah.
Above the Survivors is the Enemy. We get into the Romulan stuff.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Okay. So we good with putting this below Ensigns of Command, but above the Bonding?
Yeah. What is that, 19th?
We've only had 11 episodes. So this puts it at 8 out of 11. So definitely towards the bottom.
I hated it. It's 8.
Yeah.
I mean, spoiler, I think it was better than next week's episode.
Interesting. Well,
We'll talk about next week's episode.
Yeah, I think we'll figure it out then. Yeah.
Next week's episode is The High Ground. While visiting a planet under civil war, Dr. Crusher is taken hostage by an opposing faction of the planet's ruling government.
I have the high ground.
we'll
try it, Anakin.
So until then, live long.
Support the vets. And
unless it costs too much.
If you need those tax cuts for the rich, you know.
Yeah.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?